I don't want to waste your time, so there won't be an intro. In the Rainbow Six community, there is this popular idea that as long as the game is balanced for pro players, it's also balanced for casual players. And the idea behind it seems convincing, right? If pro players can't break the game, then casual players aren't able to do it either. But I have two problems with this idea. Right? The first one is that it's kind of wrong on a logical level. And the second one is that I think it kind of misses a big point of game design, right? But let me start with the first one. And for that, I first need to kind of define how I see balance as a whole, right? Because not everyone follows the same definition here. For me, an operator being balanced means that his win rate is about 50%, right? And there's some wiggle room here. If an operator has 51% win rate, still balanced, right? But there's a point at which his win rate progresses, and then at some point he becomes overpowered if his win rate is significantly above 50%, and underpowered if his win rate is below 50%. And I guess within the context of Rainbow, we probably shouldn't stick to this magical 50% number. It probably makes more sense to have a relative reference frame, right? If you're talking about a defending operator, it makes sense to compare his win rate to the average win rate of all the other defenders, which could be 55%, right? And then an operator is OP if his win rate is significantly above 55%, and underpowered if his win rate is below 55%. Okay, so then what this idea that I talked about in the beginning really means is that if an operator, gun, or gadget has 50% win rate an average win rate in Pro League, it's also going to have an average win rate in casual play. And with casual, I'm also referring to Plat and Diamond ranked, right? Basically everything that is not Pro League, Challenger League, or T3 competition. And if we now come up with an example for an operator that is balanced in Pro League, but overpowered in casual, then this would show that this idea is wrong, or at least not necessarily correct. And it's actually not difficult to do that, right? Think about an operator, for example, like a defender, that is cloaked whenever he's standing still. But whenever he is standing still, one of the attackers, and only one of the attackers, sees him like he was marked by a drone, for example. And then he just needs to communicate this to his team, and then they can, hunt him down or something. And an operator like this would be, probably alright in Pro League. Because people in Pro League can communicate correctly, right? They can easily spot where he is, and then they don't get caught off by him. But in casual, this operator is an absolute menace, right? People don't communicate in casual, and even if they really did, it's still difficult to exactly vocalize where he is, what he's doing, right? And this operator shows that the idea that the game is always balanced if it's balanced for pro players just isn't really true. At least not with a few asterisks next to it. And to be fair, that example was a bit constructed, I'll give you that. But think about it, why would this be true in a general case? I don't see any reason why it should be, honestly. And honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if we already had an operator like that in the game. For example, if you consider Frost. Frost is unbalanced in Pro League because she's too weak, but I wouldn't be surprised at all if Frost was unbalanced in casual because she was too strong. But here we should be making a distinction between an operator that is OP in Pro League and an operator that is being OP in casual, right? Assuming that Frost is actually OP in casual, I don't actually know if she is, but if she is, that's because people aren't playing well enough, right? There are counters to Frost, obviously, but people just aren't using them. But if you compare this to an operator that is being OP in Pro League, for example, old Blackbeard was, right? It's not that he's OP because people can't figure out what to do against him. Old Blackbeard was OP because the game demanded it, right? There was just nothing you could do. And this kind of poses an interesting question to the developers, right? Because they don't want an operator to be OP in casual, right? But at the same time, they can't just handhold their casual player base just because they, can't deal with something that is OP but definitely has counters, right? So kind of an interesting question for them. But getting back to the topic, at the beginning I said there were two reasons why I didn't like this idea, right? First one is that it just isn't necessarily true, as I just talked about. But the second one is that it kind of misses a major point of game design, in my opinion. And obviously I don't know anything about game design, I'm basically just guessing here, but I'll just do it anyways. The way I see it, devs shouldn't even try to maximize balance in the first place. I think their job is to maximize enjoyability. And I'm pretty sure this is exactly what we're seeing at the moment, right? If you think about, for example, the split between attacker and defender win rate, right? And on some Pro League maps, there's a 20% gap between attacker and defender win rates. But, and I'd imagine it's the same for casual too, right? But this doesn't seem to bother Ubisoft at all, right? Like, things have been that way for 2 years and there's no change in sight, right? And of course, enjoyability and balance are very closely connected, right? If something is OP, chances are it's also not a lot of fun. But I do think that the distinction is important, because if the devs only cared about balance, it's a lot easier to make the point that they should be balancing around Pro League, right? Obviously, we just showed that it doesn't necessarily mean that the game is balanced overall, but at least, like, in that case, the cause of the imbalance is that just some people just aren't skilled enough to deal with, like, to find the counters or stuff. So that's probably an acceptable trade-off. But if we assume that the devs are maximizing enjoyability, and I'd be hard-pressed to believe that they're doing something else, then it's a lot harder to make the case for them making changes based around Pro League, right? There just aren't enough pros to justify that. And at the end of the day, there's nothing wrong with that, right? It kind of needs to be that way, because everything surrounding Pro League can only exist if the casual players are enjoying the game, right? If they stopped enjoying the game, Pro League would close down and that would be the end of it. Basically, what I wanted to say in this video was A, if Ubisoft only balanced the game around pro players, it wouldn't necessarily guarantee that the game was also balanced for casual players too. And B, Ubisoft isn't even trying to create a balanced game. And they shouldn't be, right? The way I see it, they should be focused on making a game that is enjoyable. And with that in mind, they obviously can't balance the game around Pro League players. But at the same time, that doesn't mean that pro players shouldn't be allowed to criticize balancing decisions, right? Because maximizing enjoyability also includes enjoyability of Pro League players and everyone who's interested in Pro League, right? And for them, things like Goyo having 3 shields is super unenjoyable, but for the casual player base, it probably doesn't matter too much if he has 2 or 3 shields, right? So, might as well make that change. Of course, I personally would prefer if they put a bit more emphasis on balancing around Pro League, but especially with the seasonal operators in mind. But well, life isn't a wish concert, as you'd say in German. Anyways, this is obviously a new format, and I'm basically just throwing it out there to see if you guys enjoyed it. I kind of like it because it gives me a way to talk about things that I otherwise wouldn't have made a video about, but yeah, I'm not sure if it's actually a good one. So yeah, please let me know if you enjoyed it, and bonus points to whoever counts how often I said right. But that's it for the video. I hope you guys enjoyed it, I hope you learned something new, and thanks for watching.